Sometimes, the way a woman tests a man's confidence isn't loud. It's not in what she says, but in what she withholds. Her silence, her distance. That shift in energy you can't quite explain, but you feel it. It leaves you wondering if you said something wrong, or worse, if you're just not enough. But what if I told you that very silence is the test? Not every woman will admit she's watching how you respond when she pulls back. But she is, not because she's trying to play games, but because something deep in her nature is looking for proof. Not proof of your charm, but proof of your center, your stillness, your strength. Most men fail these quiet tests, not because they're weak, but because they chase what's slipping. They try to fix the tension, fill the space, regain favor, and in doing so, they lose something much more important, themselves. But the men who pass, they're not louder, they're calmer, they don't react, they remain. If you've ever felt that cold silence and didn't know what it meant, if you've ever been drawn into trying harder, saying more, proving yourself for someone who barely gave you anything to work with, then this video is for you. Because today, I'll walk you through 5 subtle ways women test your confidence and show you how to respond from a place of self-respect and emotional clarity. So you're no longer reacting, you're leading. If that's something you've been searching for, take a moment now to like the video and subscribe to Stoic Station. Let's get into it. 1. Cold on purpose. The apathy test. She's not being distant by accident. She's distant on purpose. And no, it's not because she's not into you. It's because she's watching, observing, measuring the invisible threads of your composure, the stillness or collapse of your presence when warmth is suddenly removed. This is one of the oldest yet most effective tests a woman can throw at a man. Not with words, not even with attitude, but with absence, emotional absence. She won't laugh at your jokes. She won't carry the conversation. You'll get one-word answers, long pauses, blank looks, and it'll feel like rejection, even if she never says a word. And here's where most men fall. Not because they're weak, but because they try to fix the silence. They chase validation. They try harder, talk more, laugh louder, compliment faster. And in doing so, they don't realize they're exposing something far deeper, that their sense of identity is tied to how she responds. This is why most men fail this test, not because they didn't say the right thing, but because they were looking for her to confirm they were enough. But if you've grown through your battles, if you've sat in solitude long enough to know who you are without applause, then this test becomes your advantage. You don't chase warmth, you radiate it. You don't force connection, you let presence do the heavy lifting. You speak calmly, you hold eye contact, not to provoke her, but because you're not looking away from anything, not even yourself. You smile, not to earn a reaction, but because peace is your default. You let her cold bounce off your frame like rain sliding off stone. And most importantly, you don't interpret her silence as rejection. You interpret it as noise, a temporary fog you're in no rush to clear. Because the truth is, when a woman sees that she can't rattle you, can't knock you off balance with distance, disinterest, or indifference, she begins to lean in, slowly, subtly. Not because you demanded it, but because you didn't need it. That's when the test ends, and real connection begins. 2. When she pokes at your ego, the disqualification game. It starts small. A teasing remark, a sarcastic smile, something she says just sharp enough to sting. You're not really my type. You're way too old for me. You're like a dad, kind of charming, but not dateable. Or worse, she laughs and says, you wish you had a shot. Most guys hear that and immediately assume she's shutting the door. They get uncomfortable, some get defensive, some try to overcompensate, Others just shut down. And just like that, they failed the test. But this isn't about cruelty. It's not about her ego. It's about yours. What she's really doing is this. She's poking at your self-worth. She wants to see if you'll fold the moment you feel dismissed. Will you become flustered? Will you try to win her approval back? Or will you remain calm, centered, unfazed by what was meant to shake you? This is one of the most misunderstood dynamics in male-female connection, because what appears to be rejection is often a disguised challenge. And the truth is painfully simple. Most men fail this test, not because they're weak, but because they're still seeking permission to feel worthy. They believe value must be earned in real time. That confidence has to be proven. So when a woman questions them, they respond by scrambling to prove themselves. But when your identity is rooted in the ground beneath your feet, not in the opinion across from you, you don't react like most men. There are 3 ways to pass this test. None of them involve apologizing for who you are. The first is simple and direct. Call it out. If the comment crosses a line, say it. Calmly, firmly. Hey, that's not how I let people speak to me. No anger, no emotional charge, just truth. Most men are too afraid to assert boundaries with women they're attracted to. You're not. You'd rather speak up than shrink back just to be liked. The second is more subtle but just as powerful. Brush it off. Smile, shrug. Say something like, "We'll see," and keep going. You treat her jab like a joke, not a wound. You don't let it rattle you. And in doing that, you show her something far more attractive than bravado. You show her emotional discipline. The third is the most playful and often the most effective. Tease her back. If she says you're out of her league, smile and say, "I stopped playing in leagues. I just go where the connection's real." That kind of response isn't arrogance, it's freedom. The freedom of a man who doesn't fear rejection because he's not auditioning for anything. That's what she's looking for. Not perfection, not polished charm, but quiet power. The kind of confidence that can take a hit and not flinch. The kind of man who doesn't crumble when he's challenged because his foundation isn't made of performance, it's made of presence. You see, any man can be smooth when the conversation flows easily, when the compliments come freely, when she's smiling at everything he says. But who are you when she questions you, when she mocks you, when she tests the edges of your composure? That's what tells her everything. Because if you can't stand tall in a moment of subtle rejection, how will you hold your ground when life really tests you? If your confidence depends on being liked, how can she trust it when things get real? She doesn't need you to be flawless. She just needs to know that if she pushes you, you won't fall. And when she sees that, she won't want to push anymore. She'll want to follow. 3. She waits for you to lead, even when she says she won't. She says, "I don't know, you pick." She says, "Let me think about it," when you suggest a plan. She hesitates when it comes to the first move, delays the kiss, deflects the responsibility of choosing. But what seems like uncertainty is often something much deeper. It's her way of asking a silent question, one she might not even realize she's asking. Can I trust you to lead when I stop leading? Most men take this at face value. They hesitate right alongside her. They bounce the decision back to her to seem polite, respectful, modern. But what they don't realize is that indecision kills attraction faster than rejection ever could. Because while she may act indifferent on the surface, deep down, she's looking for clarity, direction, stability. She doesn't want to drive the whole thing. She wants to feel safe enough to sit back and relax into your lead. And if you don't take that role, then she doesn't just lose interest, she quietly moves you into a different category. Not because she's punishing you, but because her instincts are telling her you can't hold space for her feminine energy. And when that happens, she'll put you in the friend zone. Not temporarily, not until you prove yourself, but almost permanently, because in her eyes, if you couldn't take the lead when it was light-hearted, you won't take it when life gets heavy. Most men think leadership is about control or dominance, but that's not it. Real leadership, the kind women respond to deeply, is about calm decisiveness. It's the kind of presence that doesn't demand submission. It invites surrender. And that only happens when she feels that you know who you are, what you want, and where you're going. So be the one who says, "Let's meet at 7." Be the one who books the dinner, who makes the move, who doesn't wait for permission to initiate. You're not controlling her path. You're inviting her to walk alongside yours, because she doesn't want to feel like she has to guide the relationship every step of the way. She wants to rest in the presence of a man who leads, not loudly, not forcefully, but with quiet certainty. A man who makes her feel, without words, "You're safe here, I've got this." 4. The jealousy trap, when she brings up other men. She casually mentions that guy at work who texts her too much. She says she gets hit on all the time, but shrugs it off like it's no big deal. Maybe she laughs a little too long at another man's joke while you're sitting right there. It's subtle, but you notice it. And that's exactly the point. She wants you to notice it. This isn't always about cruelty or manipulation. Often it's strategic, sometimes unconscious, sometimes deliberate, but make no mistake, it's a test designed to provoke a reaction, to pull something out of you that reveals what kind of man you are beneath the surface. Most men fail this one, and they fail it fast. They panic. They start comparing themselves to the men she mentions. They highlight their own accomplishments, talk trash about the other guy, or worse. They start pouring out compliments and validation to win her back. All of it, a desperate attempt to re-establish value in her eyes. And here's the truth behind all that. Most guys go straight into loss aversion mode. Their confidence folds under pressure, and in doing so, they unknowingly kill all attraction. Why? Because insecurity always reveals itself. It leaks through tone, posture, overreaction, and once it shows, it suffocates desire. Women can smell it before you even know you're bleeding. What she's really doing is this. She wants to see if you'll compete or collapse. Will you try to prove your worth like the rest? Or will you stay rooted in the quiet, knowing that you never had to prove anything in the first place? So how do you pass the jealousy trap? First, you don't flinch. You don't get drawn into a fight you didn't start. If the two of you are in a committed relationship and her behavior crosses a clear line, you don't respond with anger. You respond with clarity. You let her know calmly, "That doesn't work for me." Not as an ultimatum, not as a demand, but as a boundary. And boundaries, when delivered without emotion, are a mark of self-respect, not control. But if you're still getting to know each other, if things aren't exclusive yet, then brushing it off is your best play. Let it slide off your presence like it doesn't touch you. Laugh, change the subject, and carry on. You are not in a race. You are not fighting for space. You are the standard. And standards don't chase validation. They hold it. Because here's what most men miss. She's not testing your jealousy. She's testing your self-respect. She wants to know, without asking, how secure you are in who you are. And if you crumble when someone else enters the frame, you're telling her loud and clear that your confidence was never real. It was conditional. And that's not attractive. But a man who stays unmoved, a man who doesn't defend or compete because he knows he doesn't need to, that man isn't just attractive, he's unforgettable. 5. The push-pull game, when she's hot. One day, cold the next. One night she texts you with warmth and affection. calling you babe, reminiscing, letting her guard down. The next day she's distant, cold, barely replies if at all. One moment she leans in, the next she pulls away. It feels inconsistent, exhausting, and maybe even manipulative, unless you understand what's really happening underneath. She's not confused. She's not overwhelmed. She's testing something far more important than your patience, your emotional steadiness. She wants to know if your confidence is dependent on her behavior. If the moment she shifts, you crumble. If the moment she goes cold, you lose your grip. This isn't about playing games for fun. It's about measuring your ability to hold your frame, not just when it's easy, but when it's uncomfortable. Because for a woman, unpredictability is a mirror. When she pulls back, your reaction reflects everything she needs to know about you. What women truly desire isn't a man who clings harder when they withdraw. It's not the one who gets hurt or confused every time the wind shifts. What they want is a man who moves forward, not because he needs her to come with him, but because he's already committed to the path he walks. What women really want is a man who pursues her, not because he needs her, but because he's unafraid of rejection. That's the key. And when that kind of man shows up, when she sees that he won't be shaken by the hot and cold, her desire starts to build, slowly, then quickly. And eventually, it begins to overtake her. Because emotional safety, consistency, and presence are what turn tension into trust, and trust into longing. And if her desire reaches the point where it's out of her control, the games stop. She stops testing. She just wants you. So don't chase her highs. Don't fear her lows. Let your presence remain solid, your interest honest, your identity untouched. Because no woman keeps playing games with a man who makes her feel like the game is already won. Let me speak to you as a man who's walked through these same fires. I've been there, sitting across from a woman who goes cold for no reason, watching her pull back when I thought we were just starting to connect. I've heard the jabs disguised as jokes, felt that shift in energy when I hesitated to lead. I've made the mistake of overreacting to another man's name in conversation, and I've chased her warmth, only to realize I was losing something far more valuable than her. I was losing myself. What I've shared with you in these 5 tests isn't just theory. It's the lived reality of what it means to reclaim your frame as a man. In every interaction, women are looking for more than charm, status, or physical attraction. They're feeling for something deeper: stability, presence, emotional grounding. Not because they want to break you, but because they want to know, will you remain yourself when the ground shifts beneath you? The truth is, most men still move through relationships hoping for permission to feel worthy. That's why they fold at silence, chase after coldness, shrink at rejection, and get lost in trying to prove themselves. But when your sense of identity stops depending on how she reacts, everything changes. You stop performing. You stop panicking. You stop asking for a place in her world because you've already built your own. That's the core message I hope you take away from this. You don't have to react to win. You just have to remain still, calm, centered, unshaken. Because when a woman tests you, what she's really hoping to find is a man who doesn't need to pass her tests to know who he is. And once she feels that, the testing ends and the real connection begins. If this message brought you clarity or helped you feel more grounded in who you are, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to Stoic Station, because what comes next goes even deeper. Getting through her hidden tests isn't just about proving confidence. It's about staying rooted in yourself when the silence gets loud, when the warmth fades, and when everything around you feels uncertain. That's when your presence is tested. That's when your truth either holds or folds. But let me ask you this. Have you ever wondered what really happens in her mind when you stop reacting? When you don't chase, don't explain, don't reach back? That's when it shifts. It's no longer a test, it becomes reflection. And your absence speaks louder than anything you could have said. Scroll down to the comment section and watch the next part, where we dive into what your silence truly echoes in her world. I'll see you there.